The NCAA is full of it. This is a step in the right direction, we all know, but they're absolutely full of it. What happened is the state of California, with Governor Gavin Newsom signing in the law, the pay for play, basically, the Fair Pay for Play Act, essentially allowing student athletes to make money off of their names, their likeness, et cetera, et cetera. They spearheaded this. Politicians within the state are taking credit for it. They deserve it, so let's give it to them. But the reality is that the NCAA hears the footsteps. They know it's coming. They know it's inevitable. And this is their way of trying to save face, look relatively good, and not have negative momentum coming in their direction because it would be an exercise in futility on their part to do otherwise. That's all they're doing here. As far as I'm concerned, they're more disgusting than ever before because their actions are just that flagrantly, duplicitous and what have you. And it annoys me to no end. Having said all of that, I want to remind the nation of what also Jeremy Bloom said. This is a guy that played football, but also took endorsement money and was ruled ineligible for his final 2 seasons because he took some endorsement dollars for skiing, for crying out loud. And the NCAA screwed him over. He said they had a choice to go on offense or defense. They obviously all chose offense for the very, very reasons that I highlighted. But nobody should be applauding the NCAA here. A matter of fact, I think they should receive more of our ire because it shows that they truly, truly know what the right thing is to do. They just don't want to do it until their hand is absolutely positively false. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just a mechanism that has been put in place to further expose their hypocrisy, their lack of sensitivity to the plight of the student athlete, that they will continue to abuse these student athletes at every turn until called on the carpet for it. This is who they are. This is what they will do. And this, to me, is the latest example of how disgusting they are. It is not a move in a positive direction for the NCAA. I think they should be smeared even more because of it.
I applaud the action for sure because this is something that I've been beating the table about. And this is something I actually thought the NCAA could almost, in a way, detach themselves from the pay-for-play conversation by simply letting kids have the ability to make money off their ability. Because this is what we're talking about. Name, image, and likeness doesn't translate to dollars unless you have a talent, unless you are able to do something out of the ordinary of everybody else, in most times, especially when you're dealing with sports. Here's the deal for me, though. I'm so proud of the evolution of the athlete. I'm so proud of these young athletes in college, guys like ourselves who are on television, and people talking about this issue and making sure that everybody understands the business model that happens in the NCAA and in college sports. I'm so happy that these conversations are going on. This move by California was monumental, and we all knew it would be. We all knew that eventually this would translate to everybody else, because what it does, Stephen A. and Max, is it creates competition once again for those schools. When California did it, Florida introduced the bill. When California did it, a lot of colleges around the country, a lot of states around the country said, this is another way for us to have an opportunity to compete. The NCAA, to Stephen A.'s point, is one of those groups that's realizing now this is no longer going to be a dictatorship because people are smarter. And the people I'm talking about in particular are the ones that are playing in these stadiums and in these arenas, understanding TV deals. They're understanding how much they're making off tickets, how many people are in those seats, and they starting to translate it to dollars. So anybody that wants to fight this old narrative or this old archaic system of the NCAA is good and they did it. No, it wasn't good. They did not evolve. So the evolution of it now has forced them to become true to what's happening in college sports.
Max and Marcus, I want to throw something by y'all. This is sort of on the same subject, but I want to get y'all input for this because I think it was last month sometime there was a news story that came out, for example, that the NBA was considering implementing a third round. I don't know how true that was, but a third round to their NBA draft. I know that Mike Krzyzewski for Duke said he was for it. John Calipari came out and spoke adamantly against it, saying that it would ruin college basketball. I think that ultimately you have an abundance of organizations out there that are looking for a workaround so folks don't have to deal with the NCAA because the NCAA is such a joke. My suggestion would be this. If the NBA were to implement a third round, which would obviously benefit the G League because some of these athletes would end up going there. I have no problem with it so long as you facilitate a pathway towards these guys getting their degrees, their college degrees, while they're in the G League, and also making sure that you implement an insurance policy against injury in case they get injured. But I think all these things should be entertained because I think we've reached a point where all of us have gotten absolutely positively tired of the hypocrisy of the NCAA, and I think everybody should be looking for avenues to work around that. What do y'all say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that moves away from the NCAA's control is a good idea, Stephen A., because technically they're a not-for-profit, they're a non-profit organization technically, but they're actually run like a for-profit business in many respects, and to wit, they're trying to constantly suppress labor costs, right? Like, and not only that, but control labor. Even without having to pay the athletes, they don't want the athletes to have independent sources of income for decades now because then they lose control and they're interested in control. And many others have made this point. But look, even this idea that, well, it helps Title IX, it helps other collegiate sports, that we don't pay the athletes because that money is redistributed towards nonsense. A lot of these schools, many of them, not all of them, have huge endowments, and if it was important to the university or the NCAA to fund those other programs, then they would. Why should that be incumbent upon football and basketball players to fund those other programs? Like, all of the arguments that the NCAA has used through the years are utter nonsense. It's just nonsense. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So to answer your question again, Stephen A., anything that moves away from NCAA control is good.
Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.